Good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here. Uh, like Ms. Heriberto said, my name is Alex Dukes. I'm one of the SWAN coaches that supports our teachers and students in the Twin Rivers School District. So we have made a lot of resources available to parents and students and teachers on our website. So I'm going to go ahead and take us to a presentation that I have for us. Here we go. All right, I think you guys can see my screen. All right. So on the website, and we will have a moment at the end where I can take you out to the website so you can see these things live on the website, but let me go over them first for you. On the website, we have some school closure plans, daily math lessons for students in grades kindergarten through 8th grade. We have two types of lessons available for students. We have review lessons, which is basically skills that students worked on during the first part of the year before we had the school closures. And then we also have preview lessons, or what we're calling enrichment lessons. And those were the lessons that students had to learn new skills in the distance learning environment. So we have both types of lessons available for parents. And like I said earlier, these are free for anybody just on the SWAN Math homepage. You don't need a login. You can access this for anybody who wants to use it, whether you're a SWAN Math school or not. Okay. Once you click in, you would navigate to your grade level. Okay. And then you'll see the review lessons and the enrichment lessons for each grade level. Okay, so these would be your review lessons. There are 6 weeks of review lessons. And then there's an additional approximately 3 to 4 weeks of enrichment lessons over here. All right. And because we had to respond very quickly, you're going to notice a different setup between the review lessons and the enrichment lessons. The information is the same, but the way they've been organized will be slightly different. So I'll walk you through that as well. Okay. When you select, this happens to be one of our review lessons. This is a week 4. So this is week 4 in grade 3. All right. You'll see basically a week's agenda, and you'll see the topic that we selected for that week. All right. You'll also see the assignment. Now I want you to notice here that you'll see 2 assignments, actually a re-engage and an extra practice. Okay. We posted both types of lessons. The extra practice is for those students who can handle at grade level information. Now, if your scholar is needing a little bit more support, you might want to choose the re-engage. So it was not intended for both lessons to be done on that day. You pick the one that's most appropriate for your scholar. All right. In addition to the actual lesson, you will have some links to some videos. You'll see this English and Spanish link. These are the videos that the students were using before the school closures. In response to the distance learning, we then started creating these new student support videos, which starts in week 4. Okay, but the English and Spanish original videos are available beginning in week 1. Right. In addition to that, after the student goes through the lesson, we are asking them to do a small reflection. What is one thing that they found successful that day? What's something that they might need to ask for a little bit more help on? All right. So just a quick sentence. It doesn't even have to be written. They can just talk to you about their feelings on that lesson. Okay. And just like in school, we really do want to make sure we do a little bit of fluency practice every day. In the regular classroom, we're asking teachers to do about 30 minutes, but because this is distance learning, we don't want to spend too much. 5 to 10 minutes. If your child can work on their addition or subtraction, multiplication or division facts for 5 to 10 minutes every day, that will be very useful to them as they progress through. All right. So this is basically your agenda for the week. So these are the two types of lessons I was talking about. You have the re-engage, which you can see has a little bit more support. So these are the same skills, except we're giving them the place value chart and some places, you can barely see it in this picture, but some places to line up their digits so they're lining up their place values correctly. So pick one. You don't need to do both. Okay, so re-engage. And extra practice is the one that's going to be more at their grade level. Okay, these are the enrichment agenda. So remember I told you there's two types of lessons, the review lessons and the enrichment lessons, okay? This is the agenda for the enrichment lessons. Okay, this looks a little bit different because we had a little bit more time to put this together. And you can see that for the topic of geometry, which happens to be in Unit 9 for grade 3, you'll see 3 activities. If you click on the activity, it'll open up the lessons for them. And so again, if you see a re-engage lesson, that's going to give them a little bit more scaffold, and then you'll see the extra practice lesson, which will be more at their grade level. You'll see the answer key. So if you need to check their answers, you can. You'll see again the original English and Spanish videos, and then those new student support videos as well. Okay. Up here at the very top, I don't know if you see this up here, there's a link that says strategies and tools. This is a nice cheat sheet for students and parents to review some of the strategies that would be used during this unit of instruction. All right. Every once in a while, we did include a math task. A math task is an opportunity for students to apply what they are learning into a real world problem. When we have these math tasks, there isn't a video available, okay? Just know that. And again, just like with the review lessons, we have some fluency practice suggestions, right? I'm gonna pause here just for a minute. Are there any questions? I'm gonna stop this share so I can see the screen here. Are there any questions that I can answer regarding the review and the enrichment lessons? Right, I think we're gonna move on. All right. I talked about all this already. Okay, so I'm going to take you out so you can see one of these new review lessons. You can see what it's going to look like when your child. Can you hear the, Heriberto, can you tell me if you can hear the sound? Okay, hold on. I'm going to.
Yeah, the screen share with the audio.
Yep. Oh no. I shared the wrong screen. Sorry, everybody. Try that one more time.
Hi, boys and girls. Let's get started. Today, I will determine the value of the numerator as it relates to the whole. Here's some vocabulary to help us. Partition, to divide or distribute into equal shares. Fraction, a numeric value that represents part of a whole or part of a group. We can write a fraction with a diagonal line or horizontal line. A numerator is the top part of a fraction, the number of equal parts being considered. The denominator is the bottom part of a fraction. That's the total number of equal parts in the whole. A variable is a letter or symbol that represents an unknown value.
Okay, so before we look
All
at
right,
the first
let's
problem, you can see that one of the SWAN coaches has done a very short lesson opener that let the students know what their objective is and reviewed some vocabulary that they might be using throughout the lesson. After that, the coach will go ahead and teach 1 to 2 problems for students to follow along with. So here we go.
answer some questions. Partition, divide the rectangle into 4 equal pieces and label each piece with the correct fraction. Awesome! I'm going to divide my rectangle into 4 pieces. Now I want to try to make these pieces as equal as possible. Some of you might have wanted to divide your rectangle differently than I did. And if you did divide yours differently than I did, it's okay because each piece has the same value. We're just choosing to partition in different ways, but the values will be the same. I need to label each piece with the correct fraction. 1 out of 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces. 1 out of 4 pieces, 1/4, 1/4, 1/4, 1/4. Awesome. Now my directions tell me to shade 3 of the 4 pieces. 1, 2, 3. 3 of the 4 pieces are shaded. Shade 3 of the 4 pieces and write the fraction for the shaded part of the rectangle. So for shaded, I have 1, 2, 3 pieces. 3 out of the total 4 pieces. For shaded, I have 3/4. For my unshaded, then write the fraction for the unshaded part of the rectangle. Unshaded, I only have 1 piece that's unshaded. 1/4 is unshaded. Okay, let's try another problem.
So as your scholar is using these videos, consider pausing them and talking to them, asking them questions. Maybe a question like, is there another way we could partition this rectangle or this model? Here they used vertical lines. What about if we used horizontal lines? Would that still create equal partitions or equal parts? Maybe talking to them, reminding them about the vocabulary. What do we call the top number of a fraction? We call that the numerator. What about the bottom number? That's the denominator. So thinking about interacting with your scholar as they're watching this, pausing, getting their information. The more we can get our scholars to talk about the math and use the math vocabulary, the more it's going to become a second language for them. And that's what we want. We want them to talk like a mathematician, right? Sometimes you'll notice that the videos will just have one type of example, and other times, like in this one, they're going to have 2. And I'm not going to show the whole video, but I just want you to see the difference between a rectangular area model and what's going to happen in the next problem.
This time, I'm not looking at a rectangle, I'm looking at a circle. Partition, divide a circle into 3 equal parts. Okay, this can be tricky. I can't just divide up my circle wherever I feel like it. My pieces have to be equal. And when dividing up a circle, we need to go right through that middle point of the circle. So I'm going to partition, divide my circle into thirds. I'm going to start at the top of my circle and go to the middle, stop at that middle point, and now branch out to the sides, trying to make as equal of pieces as possible. All right, they're not always perfect, but we do our best. I have 3 pieces.
She's going to go through the same thing. She's going to label the parts of the circle and then talk about the shaded and unshaded parts. A circle area model is usually a lot harder for students to partition equally. So this would be a great time to take out some paper and just have them practice partitioning circles. That's a huge standard in 3rd grade. And it's going to continue with them for 4th and 5th grades as well, partitioning circles into equal parts. All right. So again, considering the types of questions that you can use to engage students in their as they're watching these videos. All right. Any questions on that? All right. Before, I do have a few other videos I want to share with you, and maybe we can practice coming up with some questions that we can engage our scholars in. But before we do that, I do want to take a web walk out to the web so you can see how to access these resources. All right. And I'm going to, should I stop my screen share? I did. Is there any, I see a lot of things going on the chat. Is there anything I need to be aware of? Is there any questions that I have missed?
There's just primarily some of the questions we're asking as far as the curriculum. For example, one parent was asking that the strategies that you were showing in the video, it was for what grade level, and is that applicable to various grade levels, or is it specifically for, let's say, a certain grade level? That's what she was asking.
So that video that we were just watching was a 3rd grade video. All right. I would encourage you to look over material for your student at the grade level that they're at this year. If your student needs a little bit more support and you want to drop down to the grade level below, you're more than welcome to do that. All of the grade levels are available. If you want students to preview what's going to happen next year, that's available too, right? But I think what's important is to make sure that the students have a solid foundation for what they're supposed to be learning this school year. Any other things that I missed on the chat? Oh, we have a lot of participants, 39. That's a great turnout.
There was a question that was asked by one of our instructors, actually a teacher. She said, will SWUN be creating these lessons for the units that are teaching? How is SWUN Math working with the instruction piece?
Good question. So for our teachers who have joined us, yes, yes and no. These lessons are available right now for all the school closure plans. The good news is we actually have even better lessons that we will be, video lessons that we'll be launching in the fall for all teachers, all grade levels. And those lessons will actually be supporting the entire lesson design. So as you can see, these lessons that I just modeled for you, just as a lesson opener and 1 or 2 sample problems. But the lessons that the video lessons that we're going to be launching in the fall will be supporting the entire lesson design from problem of the day all the way through reaching consensus and into closure. So we're very excited to be able to offer that for our teachers, especially in this distance learning time. So be looking forward to that. All right. Shall we move on, or is there anything else? Okay. I'm going to go back to share my screen. Oh, well, the website tour. Okay, so let me stop this and let me share this. Okay, so for our parents and teachers, what you're going to do is you're going to start by navigating to swunmath.com. Okay, this is our homepage, right? And you'll see a couple of new links. This is the school closure plan. These are these plans that I have been speaking to you this morning about. For those teachers who are on and might be teaching summer school, we have some summer school stuff coming up, all right? But that's just for our teachers and students doing summer school. All right, so school closure plans, you're going to click on the school closure plan link here at the top, and you're going to see that you will have access to all grade levels, okay, kinder all the way down, all right? Again, you have your review lessons here, okay, and you'll see there's a separate link for the answer key. And then you have your enrichment lessons on this side. These are the lessons that basically students have had to navigate during distance learning. So this is the new learning that they would have been doing in class, but because of COVID, we've been in a distance learning environment. For the review lessons, you'll just click on the link week you want. I'm just going to over here. This is that sheet that I was sharing with you. Okay. This is a downloadable PDF. Okay. But if you leave it like this, these are live links. So you can click on the links to the support videos here. Notice that this PDF is 26 pages. Okay. We apologize for that, but we were just trying to get this material out to parents, students, and teachers as quickly as possible when we moved into this distance learning environment. So what you're going to have to do is look at Monday. You have Unit 4, Lesson 4. You really are going to want to focus on Unit 4, Lesson 4. Do you see that right here? Okay. As you scroll through this PDF, you're looking for Unit 4, Lesson 4. This is the re-engage lesson. Okay. These are typically 2 to 3 pages. And then you'll see Unit 4, Lesson 4 homework. Okay, this is going to be the on grade level stuff for students. So they're going to pick one or the other. They don't need to do both. If your child is wanting to do both, that's fine, but that was not the intention. Okay, the homework is usually a little bit longer. Now notice here, this is the only clue. You're going to have to look here. Unit 4, Lesson 5. If I go back to that very first page, Unit 4, Lesson 5 is for Tuesday. Okay, so we apologize for having to navigate a 26-page document, but that was the best we could do so we could get this out to students and teachers as soon as possible when we went into this distance learning environment. All right. Okay, so you'll just navigate through this, picking and choosing which lesson would be appropriate for your scholar. All right. I'm going to close here. The answer key is here as well. So if you click on the answer key, you'll see Monday, this is the re-engage lesson, and Unit 4, Lesson 4 extra practice. It happens to be homework for Monday. So sometimes as we selected the homework, we either looked at extra practice or homework, so you'll see both of those, but that will be the other answer key here. Okay. Now, if you're looking at the enrichment, I want to make sure we go through this as well. I'm just going to pick, I don't know, area and perimeter. So area and perimeter happens to come from Unit 10 in grade 3. Okay. For this unit, we have done identified 6 activities for students. All right. Again, you have that re-engage piece if it's appropriate. All right, so when you click on the activity, notice that this is a live link. When you click on this activity, you're only going to get the pages that go for, that are aligned with the area and perimeter with this lesson. So this is the re-engage. Okay, the nice thing about the re-engage, I usually have a model up here at the top for you. Okay, and like I said, the problems have some scaffolding built into them for the students. So you have your re-engage. And then after that, we really tried to select homework lessons because in our homework material, we always have an example given to them. So because this is new learning for students, we wanted to give them as much support as we could. So that's why we're choosing the homework more often in the enrichment lessons, right? And then they have some homework problems to work on. Right, so this is a much shorter PDF because we were able to have a little bit more time and we were able to break this up into the different activities. Again, you have your key for this activity. You have your original videos. I will encourage you to use a student support video. I think that's a little bit more child-friendly, student-friendly. Okay, and this is a great link. It's a strategies and tools link. So if you click on this, what you'll see is a lot of strategies and tools that are going to be used during this unit of study. what they can do for finding areas. They're talking about length and width. It's just kind of a nice little cheat sheet. They're going to be talking about centimeters and meters. So it's just a nice little cheat sheet of the different skills that they're going to be encountering during this unit of study. If you find that you really prefer having one giant PDF and not these smaller PDFs, you can download an entire, like the whole packet here. Okay, so here now you can see this is a 38-page PDF. So if that's something that you prefer, that's available as well. Okay, something to note, and I was remiss on noting this earlier, but in both of these PDFs, it doesn't matter which one you use, at the very end, I'm going to go all the way down to the very, very end of this one. Excuse my scrolling. You'll find the Beyond the Basic Facts support worksheets that you can choose for students. So whether it's multiplication, you have 2 forms of multiplication in this one. You have some, just the 9s in this page, just the 8s on this page. Okay. In the enrichment, just so you know that in the enrichment, you have these live links here. And then you have the place for the students to do their reflection and the date that they completed that. All right. Any questions regarding the links on the web page? I think we're good.
There's one, and I do apologize for the noise in the background. The city
That's okay.
is doing some free work. There's a couple questions is as far as these links or the student support videos, as far as copying and pasting these instructions, would that be easy to do on Google Classrooms?
Yeah, you can download the PDF to your device, to your computer, and then you can upload that to Google Classrooms. That's what most teachers have been doing. Yes. Okay.
There's also one other question as far as for, let's say in some cases, students who have a specific learning disability and they prefer hands-on, or let's say PDFs or documents or digital, how would you go about in supporting students who have a certain learning disability?
Whether they want to have like a hard copy, is that what, I'm sorry. Yeah. Also, all of these can be printed. They're not writable PDFs. So I know a lot of teachers have been finding, I think Kami is one of the one that I hear the most about is Kami. And I think they have some, I don't know, maybe Ernestine, you might be able to help me with this. I don't know if there's some free downloadable Kami account or something, but on Kami, students can actually write on the PDF and they don't have to type in.
I think that's been what most of the teachers in our district have been doing, downloading the Kami and creating writable PDFs. And we've also had someone within at the district level doing that work for teachers as well.
Yeah, the nice thing about writable PDFs is they can type it in. The thing that's not so friendly when we're talking about writable PDFs in a mathematical situation is sometimes it's hard to show their work on a writable PDF. So I think Kami has been a more useful tool for mathematicians during this time.
Alex, there's one more question, and it's really around, can she add those videos to Google Classroom?
Yeah, I believe you can highlight the link and then add that link in. Yes. All right. Before I do have a few other videos where we talk about some of the questions that we can be asking our scholars at home, I do want to highlight also from the Swun Math homepage, okay, without logging in, having 5 to 10 minutes of practice with our scholars for their facts practice is really essential for students. What we're finding is scholars who do really well, who have really memorized their basic facts, are much more successful as they progress through the years. And scholars who are still having to count on their fingers for adding and multiplying, it becomes really cumbersome as they're working with bigger and bigger numbers. So if I can just make any suggestion to all of our parents that have joined us this morning, spend 5 to 10 minutes every day with their facts, whether it's addition and subtraction or multiplication and division for our older students, all right? Like I shared with you on those school closure plans, we do have some paper pencil resources available. But I think sometimes paper pencil every day can be kind of boring for kids, right? So let's change it up for them. On the Swun Math homepage, if you go to facts practices, and this is free all the time, we've always had this available to anybody. If you click on facts practice, you can choose whether they're working on addition, subtraction, multiplication, or division. Okay, you can adjust. Sorry, I have to move this. You can adjust the fact family. So do you want them working from 1s all the way to 9s? Notice how this got darker here. Maybe you just want them to work on 1s to 3s. Okay, and this will adjust these parameters. Okay, there are different types here if you wanted to play with these. If I have any middle school parents, we also have some integer work here too as well. So if you leave it as just this is going to have our students use the commutative property of multiplication or the commutative property of addition, where they're given 3 times 7, but they need to also recognize that 7 times 3 also is 21. Okay, and that's how our Beyond the Basic Facts works. So they're given 3 times 6, they need to answer 6 times 3 is 18. All right, if you change the type to timed, okay, this is just all about just the quickness of things, right? So again, you, as soon as this comes up, you can again adjust your fact families. I've left it at 1 to 3. You can set, I mean, even just if they're just focused for 2 minutes, this is a good chunk of time for them, right? And all they're going to be doing is putting the answer in. Okay, and the faster they get, the more they're going to get here. So maybe it's just about getting get more of them correct in 2 minutes, right? For our middle school friends, timed integers deals with positive and negative numbers. Okay, so they have to then include the negative sign in there. All right, same thing for addition. I'm going to switch this to addition. And I'm going to go back just to practicing their facts. Okay, and again, you can make this bigger, adjust the parameters. When you're talking about subtraction or division, either one, you're going to notice that instead of the commutative property, you're going to be talking about the fact families here, that addition and subtraction are related. So if I know that 8 plus 3 equals 11, I also know that 11 minus 8 equals 3, and that 11 minus 3 equals 8. So we're trying to get them to recognize the connection between addition and subtraction. All right. And again, if you change this just to timed subtraction, it's just about give me the answer, give me the answer, give me the answer. Well, as soon as this shifts over. Okay, so this is just about subtraction, give me the answers. Okay, so this is a really robust system that you can use would you with yours at home? All right. I want to make sure I leave at least 10 minutes at the end of our hour together for questions and answers. If there's anything else that's coming up right now, I can take any other questions that have come up.
One of the questions that was asked in the Google Forms was, how do we help and motivate students to not give up, students to work hard and to resolve the questions, the math problems? How do we motivate our students so they don't quit?
That's a great question. I mean, I think part of it is just having that interaction with kids. I notice even with my own scholars, my own students here at home, I have a 2nd grader and an 8th grader. And if they're able to show me something and tell me what they can do, it makes them feel like I'm teaching something to somebody, you know? So just engaging them in, what do you know? What is it that you know? And then if they are struggling with something, maybe we can look at this together. Let's watch the video together and let's see if we can figure it out together, right? So be a partner in this with them, because this is a very unprecedented time, and we definitely don't want them to feel like, oh, this is just worksheet after worksheet. We need to make sure that they're engaging in that mathematical articulation as much as possible, right? And, you know, again, we have the resources of our teachers. Even though we might not be in the classroom, our teachers are available to us, whether it's through email or through Zoom meetings. So utilizing our teachers. If you and your student and scholar couldn't figure out a problem, reach out to your resources at school, right? I think this also leads into kind of what I've been saving for the last part is, let's look at some videos together and let's brainstorm what are some good questions that we can ask our scholars. We don't want just to give them the answer. It's about guiding them to it and helping them see it for themselves, you know, and asking those questions that can guide them to that, right? Any other questions before I go back to the videos?
One of the other questions that was asked also previously was, when it comes to students, in this case, for example, they're out of their school schedule, they get easily frustrated with homework or these assignments, and let's say in some cases they had a certain structure or certain specific learning challenges. How do we go as far as reinforcing some of those things that we're working on in the classroom, some of the things that we do at home, the students, miss that routine.
Structure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think, Heriberto, you said the word structure. I think that's really key for students right now. When students are going to school, their classroom teacher has a structure for them all day long. They know that every day they're going to start with whatever it is, writing, and then they're going to go, do writing for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, and then we're going to do, math for 60 minutes, and then they're going to take a recess break. And it's about structure. Students strive on structure. So if we can try to mimic that structure for students as much as possible, I think that they find success in that. So if you can set up your day with your scholar at home with some type of structure, it doesn't have to be exactly what's happening at school. For example, with my scholar, my 2nd grader, I write out his agenda. So that this is what we're going to do today. And then he gets to pick and choose what he wants to work on. And then as soon as he finishes something, he shows it to me, I approve it, and he has to check it off. And then I initial that I've checked it for him. And that provides some structure, right? So find structure that works for your child. Maybe 8 to 3 maybe that works great for them. Maybe it doesn't. My little one likes to sleep till about 9 o'clock, and then he gets up and has breakfast, and then we get started on our day. He's actually in the room right now working with his brother, and then he'll come up with his little checklist, and I have to check that off. So find a structure that works for your scholar. It's really easy for them to, watch TV all day long or get on those gaming systems. But first and foremost, we need to get our subjects in, right? And maybe having a 10-minute break or a 15-minute break where they can have some TV time or some, gaming time. But let's put a time limit on that and go back to studies. I don't know if that answered the question, but everybody's frozen. Ernestine, did you want to add anything to that?
No, I think it's really important to have a routine for your students. And I know we put out sample ones, and I think that some of them are on the resource page that we have for parents, samples of schedules that they can do with their child during the day, because I think it's really important to establish a routine in order to be able to keep it consistent with what they've been used to at school, especially since they're working from home now on what was normally what they did at school. So it's important that you have that routine, but also have that time for students to get a break for a cognitive break, for them to be able to really kind of process the information and have a little downtime.
Yeah, I agree. All right, I'm going to go back to screen sharing, and as we watch these next few videos, I'm going to be asking our participants today to think about what is a question that you might ask your scholar if they're watching this video. Think about some questions. I have some kind of prep for us, but let's kind of practice. You know, if we are watching this video in front of our scholar, our student, what are some questions we might ask them? All right. So this is a first grade lesson, all right? And I'm skipping the first part of it. They've already solved one problem. You can see here that it was a word problem, and they drew a picture, okay? Now, when we get into the second problem that we're going to show right now, that we're going to watch right now, you're going to see that they're going to be using a number bond. And let's talk about some things that we could possibly ask our scholars.
Next up, we have another word problem, but this time we're going to use a number bond. So looking at this one, I see there are 8 orange flowers. There were 4 pink flowers. How many flowers were there all together? So first I notice that I have 8 orange flowers. Now
I apologize for the buffering. Come on. Really? Okay, well, I'm going to talk us through this. All right. So what Mr. Chewy does here is he talks about that there are 8 orange flowers and that there were 4 pink flowers. How many flowers were there all together? All right. So he talks about the 8 orange flowers, and he asks the students, 8 orange flowers, is 8 orange flowers a part or a whole? Is that a part or a whole? That's a great place for you guys to ask some questions. How do you know?
Orange flowers are...
I'm going to pause him. All right. And so if they read the whole problem, it says there were 8 orange flowers and there were 4 pink flowers. How many flowers were all together? That is a key word. All together is a key math word that tells us that these 8 orange flowers is not the whole. They're a part of the whole, because the orange and the pink together are what's the whole, right? So then we know that we need to place the 8 as one of the parts, right? And again, what happens with 4 pink flowers? Where are we going to put the 4? Are we going to put it in the whole, or are we going to put it in the part? Right? So just asking your child, your scholar, to identify those numbers go in that number bond, okay? And when we find the whole, we're going to take these two parts and we're going to put them together. We're going to compose them, right? Now, some scholars in first grade might know their facts, and they might know that 8 plus 4 right away is 12. Other scholars might not know what 8 plus 4 is. So another great question, instead of telling them what to do, ask them, well, what's a strategy we could use? What could you do to figure out what 8 plus 4 is? And let them tell you some of the strategies they've learned, right? Most first graders would probably go to a draw picture. They would draw eight flowers or 8 circles and 4 more and then count them up and find that the whole is 12. Any other questions that you might want to ask scholars during this type of problem? Should we move on to another video? Maybe? All right, we're going to move on to 5th grade, everybody. Let's hope the buffering is better on this one.
Here's a question to look at. Our directions say add using the algorithm. Simplify if possible. Dawn bought 3/4 of a pound of jelly beans and 5/8 of a pound of gumballs. How much candy did he buy in total? Yes, our directions tell us to add. But our question says in total, which gives us another clue that we need to add. Dawn started with buying 3/4 of a pound of jelly beans. And then he also bought 5/8 of a pound of gumballs. We need to find the total amount of candy that he bought. Now, our fractions have different denominators, so we need to find a common denominator.
I would pause the video there and ask them if they remember how to find a common denominator, right? So I'm going to let her.
This is to multiply our denominators by each other. So we can multiply our first fraction of 3/4, have our 4 times 8, and add that with our other fraction of 8 times 4. Then we'll have the same denominator for each fraction. Now, if we multiply our denominator by 8, we have to multiply our numerator by 8. We have 3, and we have to multiply 3 times 8, because 8 divided by 8 has the same value of 1, and any number times 1 is the number we started with. So we're just finding a common denominator, but not changing the value of our fractions. This is the same for our second fraction of 5/8. We need to have our 5 and multiply it by 4, since that's what we did to our denominator earlier. Now, when we multiply through, we'll see 3 times 8 will give us 24 over 4 times 8 will give us 32. We'll add that to our next fraction. 5 times 4 gives us 20. 8 times 4 gives us 32.
I'm going to stop us there because there's a lot of math going on here, right? Something to always note is before students have learned about the algorithm, they've always explored this concept using some type of visual model, okay? So one question that I might be asking my scholar at this point is, how could I prove that 3/4 and 24/32 are equivalent? Could we use a model, right? If you're not sure how to support a model, I always suggest go back. If I were to go back to the closure plans, let's see. That was grade 5, the video that we were looking at right now. See, we had Albert where I got that video from. The day before, they were using an area model. So they can go back to the day before and see how the area model might have looked like for those types of problems. So always thinking about, you know, how can you prove your answer? Could you draw a model? Those are always great questions to ask our scholars, right? This idea of multiplying by 1, when I have 3/4 and I multiply by 8/8, I'm multiplying by 1. 3/4 times 1, we know anything times 1 is going to be the same thing. So it's just changing. It's changing the fraction, but it's not changing the value. So having students talk about that. Any other questions or comments that you want to make about these videos? You can come up. If I have any middle school parents out there, I'm going to show a grade 7 video, and I want you to remember this concept of 1 that Ms. Tran talked about to our 5th graders, and we're going to see how that same concept is going to be important when we're talking about ratio and proportions.
Keeping that in mind, when we look at our first sample for today, the question is saying, determine whether the ratios below are proportional. What would happen if the ratio were 45/90? If the first ratio were 45/90? So if I'm looking at each of my different ratios, 10/20 can be simplified down because 10 will fit into both the numerator and denominator. So 10/20 is the same as 1/2. Looking at my second.
So he didn't show the work here because, you know, we're trying to balance what they already know, right? But what he did was 10/20, both the 10 and the 20 are divisible by 10. So he did 10 divided by 10 and 20 divided by 10. So again, 10/10 is 1. When anytime we divide by 1, we get a value that's equivalent. So he's not changed, even though he's changing the fraction, the value of these two fractions are the same. So again, talking to our scholars about why, when we divide a fraction by the same numerator and the denominator, do we get an equivalent fraction? So just having students talk about these concepts. All right. So I want to, we only have about 7 minutes left. I want to make sure I leave some time for questions and answers, Q&A. Is there any questions about anything on the videos that we watched, or any comments about other questions you might want to ask your scholars as you're watching these videos? I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
Just really quickly, one of the comments that was made is, as far as families accessing this information, the best way, as far as if a student has an account with TRUSD apps portal, with this information, students are able to log in and are able to either log in into their SWUN math and activities that teachers have assigned in the backpack. That is based on their student ID number as their username or their account. Usually is like a 9-digit number at fundraiseusd.org. And their password is, in this case, well, I think they would know how to access it because they go, let's say in this case, at the school sites. If you have any questions, I would say you could reach out to your teachers as far as concerns and accessing information. What I'll do right now, I'm going to send you the link as far as the TRUSD apps, also within the chat.
One thing I do want to make sure we're clear about is our teachers have been working very hard to make sure that your scholars are still receiving quality lessons at home. Our school closure plans are not intended to replace our lesson plans for your scholars. They're there as a resource if you would like to use them in addition to. Some of our teachers might be using them as part of their distance learning materials. So I just want to be very clear that our teachers are working so hard to make sure that your scholars are still getting the quality education that everybody deserves, even during this unprecedented time.
Mhm. And then one of the other things that was mentioned within the help desk when it comes to questions about accessing, say in this case, if you have an issue when it comes to logging into the apps portal, there's a couple of ways as far as reaching out. One would be contacting their teacher as far as maybe it's an issue with the password or an issue that it's on their part as far as accessing the account information. If it's something that maybe next step in case would be also doing calling the help desk line. There's it's at 916-566-7802 Monday through Friday 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. and then we also have an email which also included in the chat. The third thing you could do if you go to the school's website, let's say if it's at Noralto or at Highlands High School, there's a staff directory where you can find the teachers and you can click on it and then you can send a message to them directly via the website as well. And then you can also include, in this case, the vice principal, principal counselor, depending on who you'd like to reach out and ask for more help or assistance. Those are some ways as far as if you're having some issues when it comes to logging in as well.
And just to piggyback off of that, those school closure plans, even though students do have access to them via the TRUSD portal, those school closure plans are available. If you just were to go to swanmath.com outside of the TRUSD portal, they are available there. So if you're having problems with the portal, you can access those lessons just by going to swanmath.com. I think I'll hang on here for just a few more minutes. For those parents who are wanting to sign up, I just want to thank you so much. We had a fabulous turnout. I think at one point we were at 39 participants. So thank you so much for taking the hour out of your morning to help support our scholars. I appreciate all the hard work that you parents are doing at home. I know that this is a very unprecedented time and you guys have really stepped up to make sure that your child is still having the quality education that they deserve. So thank you for our parents, our teachers, and for the district for all the support that you guys have provided our students.